A circle of pink light shimmered in the forest as face-down two armored figures closing in. Then a skull-faced figure with flowing black hair smashed a fist against a glowing barrier as the shocked blonde-haired woman struggled to hold it together. Swung his magical staff, blasting pink glass shards toward the two horned figures. A fiery-haired figure unleashed a wave of flames with his staff, declaring that his opponents should experience the force of his power. Stared upward in shock as two skeletal warriors with flaming swords leapt down, ready to strike. Unleashed a fierce horizontal slash that sent both opponents flying across the room. Wondered aloud why his agility was not enough to outrun the relentless skeletons or survive more than a few seconds. He jumped through the dark, turbulent forest, telling himself escape was impossible. The knight charged with a shout as braced himself behind a glowing shield and wondered about the enemy's unexpected skill. Raised his shield, activating a powerful defense as a sweating adventurer muttered that he regretted coming for the skill scroll. A surge of dark power flickered in his hand as he muttered that he had to stop the enemy from escaping and finish what he started. Realized the attackers could use skills too, and worried that his shield's defense might fail soon. Then cornered and panicked, cursed aloud as skeleton warriors closed in and forced him to raise his shield defensively. A solemn woman with long dark hair told Mo he should always follow through once he decided to act, never allowing himself to hesitate. A girl with purple hair stared at the bodies and wondered aloud how everyone had died when TMT even moved. Weapons and armor shimmered on the ground as a curious examined each item beneath the vast night sky. A knowledgeable woman explained to that these weapons came from Orc Legion dungeon near city. The examined a glowing orb and remarked that the 4 pieces of equipment were only good for selling. The white-haired woman advised that to use the primary skill scroll, explaining he might learn new abilities or get something he already knew. The silver-haired woman challenged, asking if he planned to sell the skill scroll and implying that 10,000 gold seemed trivial for someone with his background. The encouraging woman told to hold the scroll and simply say use to activate it. Stoic and reserved, stands silent with the wrapped item as a playful girl with lavender hair lanes in close beside him. The playful girl with lavender hair laughed gently, telling he needed to say it louder for the skill to activate. Calm and observant, examines the scroll while a mysterious girl with long white hair leans in and mentions it needs spiritual energy to activate. Channels spiritual energy into the wrapped object, while the girl in dark clothes calls his attempt a failure. Unleashed a surge of explosions from fallen bodies, quietly marveling at how his new skill could trigger devastating chain reactions. Then showed off his divine skill as the woman with a ponytail asked if he had picked up something new. Under the starry sky, the silver-haired woman told he had a pleasant voice and wondered why he didn't speak more often. Studied the white-haired girl, quietly noting to himself that she seemed different from the classmates he was used to. Reserved but sincere, told the playful silver-haired woman he liked her voice, and she confidently agreed that her voice was indeed very nice. The silver-haired girl handed a small box to, saying she wanted to repay him for his help and kind words. A glowing scroll hovered above the open chest as they realized he had found something far more valuable than expected. They wondered why the silver-haired girl, once chased for the scroll, was now giving it to him so easily. Sat by the campfire and explained that he once found a hidden chest by chance in this dungeon. Kneeling by the glowing chest, the determined adventurer explained he had just obtained the intermediate skill scroll after opening it. 3 shadowy figures with weapons rushed toward thee as he insisted he wouldn't give up the scroll he found. A silver-haired woman sat by the fire and told that she tried to escape but was chased for 2 days without a break. A concerned warned the woman she had nearly died, while she calmly reassured him and expressed her gratitude for his help. The girl hugged her knees and admitted she feared getting hurt most, while thought she must have some hidden treasure to protect herself. The girl with purple hair asked if he had more food, while quickly said he wanted the intermediate skill scroll. The inquisitive woman asked if he was leveling up and which university he planned to attend, and replied that he chose university. A young woman with white hair took a bite of her bun and quietly marveled that skill could secure him entry into any university. The assertive young woman explained that when reached Jing University, he should clear as many floors as possible in tower for double rewards. The girl with long light hair leaned in and told that earning points in would be like collecting gold coins, and urged him to visit the creation seminary. A caring and protective, gently supported the sleeping white-haired girl as soft light filled the quiet room. Still sat cross-legged in calm silence, focusing inward to restore his spiritual energy as a gentle aura shimmered around him. The next morning, a sleepy girl with long silver hair rubbed her eye and asked if there were any potatoes left because she was hungry. A young woman with silver hair thrust out her arm and insisted the other person give her more, demanding everything she could get. Av assured the woman with purple hair that there were truly none left, and she accepted his answer. A confident woman told she was off to raise her level, urging him to catch up so they could grow stronger together. The determined woman with long white hair ran ahead into the glowing mist, calling back that they should try leveling up together the next time. A stands over an unconscious blonde-haired girl, saying he's ready to test out his new skill. Then hurled a fireball at his enemy, shouting that he was unleashing a corpse explosion. Flames surged outward in a violent wave, scattering debris as the explosion tore through the battlefield. Stood by the crater, telling his defeated opponent that his talent had made the skills area much larger and nearly unstoppable. Walked forward calmly as explosions erupted around him, saying he would go test it out at the mine dungeon. A skeleton warrior trailed behind a thoughtful through the dense, shadowy forest as he quietly calculated that he could summon just 4 more. A calm stood before the glowing portal, telling his silent companion there was no need to hurry and asking about the mine entrance. Adventurers urgently called out for healers, knights, and support as they organized parties near the swirling purple portal in the rocky dungeon. Calm and confident, walked past armored soldiers and a skeletal warrior gripping a glowing sword, unfazed by the tense atmosphere surrounding him. Studied the glowing selection panel while his silent companion waited nearby, thinking that even the normal difficulty here had monsters far stronger than usual. With a glowing object confronted the silent figure in white, asking if he was a summoner. A skeletal warrior with blazing eyes looms over forcing him to recoil in shock. 3 adventurers circled, telling him they wanted a damage dealer and inviting him to clear the dungeon together for equal rewards. Calmly declined their offer. Contemplates a dark, glowing prompt asking him to confirm his selection of nightmare difficulty. Confirmed the command, his voice steady as the light around him flared. A group of anxious observers crowded around the glowing portal, whispering questions about the lone figure's level and profession as he stepped inside. 2 unseen voices wondered if would survive, with one guessing he might just come running back if things got tough. A cautious stands inside a glowing circle, quietly noting the heavy scent of blood and warning himself that monsters might appear the moment he steps out. He raised one hand in a magical gesture, scanning the hulking goblin mine guard and noting its strength and defense far surpassed any ordinary monster. A determined, raised blue flames as skeletal monsters closed in, recalling that only a strong party could defeat foes like these. Summoned his glowing skeletons, saying his creatures easily outclassed the goblin and urging them forward. With a single, lethal swing of his glowing weapon, cut down the goblin mine guard in a burst of motion. He stared at the glowing notification, quickly realizing this one monster gave 10 times more experience than anything he had faced outside. Then a confident called out that killing each monster would only take seconds, and his leveling speed would soar. Studied the glowing map, stating that he would not let any enemies survive. Golden light flared around as the system announced he had defeated the goblin mine guard and gained new experience and fur. Energized by victory, the determined summoned new skeleton warriors and announced that reaching level 11 had restored his spirit for even more summons. Focused and analytical, noted aloud that his strength, agility, and spirit now increased more rapidly with each new level. The bronze skeleton warriors, flames swirling around them, displayed their impressive new stats and prepared to unleash a powerful skill. Still wondered aloud why every skill improved except for the new one he had just learned. He closed his eyes, thinking that if she were here, she might have the answer. Then turned sharply, sensing the sudden presence of a red sword as he wondered aloud what had changed. A hulking white wolf with blazing red eyes lunged straight for every muscle tensed for the attack. The fierce wolf bared its glowing red eyes, snarling as it sized up its outnumbered enemy. A commanding figure ordered the ghostly warriors forward, his voice echoing through the swirling darkness of the cave. The dominant wolf let out a thunderous roar as the resilient skeleton warriors braced themselves, preparing to withstand its powerful assault. Suddenly, they unleashed a white wolf brimming with red energy, sending it charging at both skeletal enemies. Then, standing calm amid the chaos, said he gained an advantage when facing larger enemies with his skeleton warriors. The giant wolf's roar blasted several skeleton warriors into the air, while remarked that the skill's true strength was its effect. The dark, red-glowing wolf-like creature bolted away, and wondered aloud if a dungeon boss could really run from a fight. A glowing-eyed skeletal figure shouted for everyone to retreat, while stood silently before a looming doorway filled with red eyes. Stands his ground as the mining wolf advances, its glowing eyes locked on him while the pack gathers behind. Judged that ordinary teams couldn't handle 100 mining wolves, but he and his skeletal ally stood ready to face them. A confident unleashes a surge of red energy, striking down the mining wolf as he insists that every experience point belongs to him. Gathered intense red energy in his hands and called out his next spell, focusing it into a glowing orb for corpse explosion. A wave of enhanced energy erupts from, instantly killing every mining wolf and scattering loot across the battlefield. A fiery explosion tears through the battlefield, and a level indicator flashes, showing progress leaping from 32 to 72%. A large, fierce wolf snarled at, and he said the wolf should experience fairness just as he had. It is blasted by a violent explosion, red and green energy swirling as the force engulfs him. Considered the experience gained, and noted the Wolf King's dropped items would still fetch a good price. Prepared his magic orb, and said he just needed to clear a bit more before facing the dungeon's final boss. Stood in the shadowy dungeon, thinking he should tackle even tougher solo challenges for greater rewards next time. Calculated his progress, thinking he could clear a few more rounds and reach level 19 at this pace. Faced the massive Goblin King in the cavern, saying he was ready to finish this fight and level up. A monstrous red eye glared as they realized the final boss was far stronger than any of his skeletons. A monstrous creature unleashed a dark energy strike, but they redirected the blow onto skeletal enemies with a blue shield. Shards of ice scattered as a massive glowing skull with bright blue eyes emerged from the darkness. A massive glowing figure exploded into countless crystal shards as a menacing clawed hand reached into view from the shadows. Unleashed a devastating rage strike and shattered two skeleton warriors at once, as someone nearby marveled at his power. Realized that his low defense meant his skeletons had to absorb most of the damage from these powerful glowing enemies. Considered his own shortcomings and quietly decided he needed to grow stronger. A fierce, armored goblin lies sprawled on the ground, bleeding as thick smoke coils around his battered form. Gathered glowing energy and declared that he commanded an entire army as shadowy figures assembled behind him. The fierce green-skinned warrior raised his sword, warning that his skeleton army would soon overwhelm anyone who tried to resist. A powerful and determined warrior descends with a glowing green sword and attacks as a skeletal foe lunges at him from below. A blinding green shockwave erupts, sending enemies flying as a calm stands back to assess its strength. A powerful, blazing creature unleashes a torrent of fire as urgently tells it to return so he can stop its skill. A determined and powerful spirit wielder lifts his hand and calls out for the soul flame as green fire bursts toward the giant demon. Unleashed soul flame and rage strike on the monstrous figure, telling himself there was no time left to hold anything back. A monstrous creature with glowing red eyes is impaled by several red swords as a determined declares he has succeeded. I reviewed his status, mentioning with relief that TMD reached level 12 and now had enough spirit to leave the dungeon. Slipped off the wisdom robe, quietly noting that its magic mattered little for a necromancer, but he welcomed the boost to his spirit and physique. A pragmatic weighed the red core in his hand and remarked that its value matched the price of 2 pieces of equipment. A strategic summoner with replenished spirit announced he could now call forth 4 skeleton warriors again. Serious and commanding, told the skeleton it was time to return. A stance bathed in blue light as onlookers gasped, marveling that survived and solo cleared the dungeon wearing the wisdom robe. Standing under the fading sky, a strategic decided he would wait for the dungeon to reopen and use the time to meditate. A full 12 hours later, the sky has completely darkened into a starry, cloudy night. Having finished his deep meditation, he opens his eyes and immediately assesses his recovering power. He calmly confirms to himself that his reserves are now fully replenished, and he is finally able to summon his 4 skeleton warriors once again, restoring his combat forces. Sitting wearily against a massive, ancient tree trunk, he takes a moment to rest while one of his glowing, spectral skeleton warriors stands guard with a drawn sword. Reviewing the harsh battles he just endured in the recent dungeon, he has a stark realization. He has now identified his biggest combat weakness, and at the same time gained a profound, intuitive understanding of exactly how his skills function, giving him a massive tactical advantage going forward. With a comprehensive understanding of his abilities now firmly in his mind, he mentally runs through his devastating combat arsenal. He concludes that if he can properly utilize his corpse explosion skill, it makes him nearly invincible. Furthermore, he breaks down the sheer power of his soul. Not only does it interrupt an enemy's skill casting, but it bypasses all forms of physical and magical defense. Confident in his newfound knowledge, he is certain that even a menacing nightmare-level boss won't stand a chance against him. Akam walks quietly past a group of seasoned wilderness gatherers sitting around a flickering campfire. Calm and confident, watched as the tense person muttered uncertainty about someone else. Stared at the glowing skeleton, asking aloud what was happening as a crowd gathered near the looming wooden structure. A frustrated outsider challenged 2 armored guards, demanding to know why the Dynasty Guild could block others from entering the dungeon. A determined man in black and gold armor gripped his glowing weapon and insisted that the Dynasty Guild was unfairly blocking others from the dungeon. Hurled a blazing punch, yelling furiously for his unseen foe to stay quiet. Is hurled backward by a sudden, unseen force. A dead man lies motionless as one shocked figure says he's gone, and another demands to know how someone could have killed him. From a low angle, an armored red-haired man taunted the kneeling figure and dared him to seek revenge if he was bold enough. A composed stands between a stunned bystander and the glowing skeletal figure as the man wonders if he's the dungeon-clearing legend. A cautious and strategic thinker explained that the Dynasty Guild needed the Goblin King's core, but getting it was almost impossible. A serious conversation unfolds as asks about the core, and the other man explains its power as the strongest accessory below level 40. A luminous ring hovered in the air, its power radiating as its remarkable attributes and level were silently listed. An informed explained too that the Dynasty Guild leader wanted the ring for Jing Academy and now needed only the Goblin King's core. A determined pressed on as his worried companion warned that facing the Dynasty Guild would mean certain death. An armored man with a flaming spear warned the fallen person not to cross them again, demanding to know if they came here to die. A determined and a menacing skeletal figure lock eyes as the figure orders him to move out of the way. The red-haired man slammed his weapon into the ground, demanding if knew who he was talking to. Resolute and intimidating, commanded his opponent to leave. The red-haired armored figure mocked the Necromancer, saying he couldn't understand instructions and questioning why someone like him would bother entering a dungeon at all. A worried man called out that the Dynasty Guild was dangerous and urged to come back quickly. Stands calmly in the shadows, his steady glare unsettling the sweating figure who can't understand why he isn't afraid. A cloaked assailant leveled a fiery weapon and warned the calm that he would kill him if he took another step. A determined pressed his foot into the misty ground and advanced through the swirling haze. One armored man barked the order to kill, and his 3 companions rushed forward with weapons ready. A confident mage shield user called out that someone like his opponent could never break his shield and ordered his allies to attack. A brace is behind his cracked shield, wondering how the summoned creature could hit with such overwhelming power. A skeletal figure in a dark cloak lunged at unleashing a furious blow against his shield as he feared for his life. Az swung his staff and declared he was unleashing the fire repulsion ring. A red-haired armored warrior shouted for his soldiers to attack, while another figure insisted he had barely survived. A furious, aggressive figure exploded forward, vowing to destroy all of the disgusting summons in a burst of blinding energy. Az is hurled backward as he shouts that he's a knight and TMT believe what's happening. A skeletal warrior lunged for a red-haired figure from behind, shouting that killing the summoner would make the monsters vanish. Both archers drew back their bows, and the male warned that anyone challenging the Dynasty Guild should be ready to face death. Fiery projectiles crash into the ground behind a calm as someone urgently warns him to dodge. Extended his hand and commanded the shadowy, skeletal figures to reveal themselves. 2 skeletal warriors crashed their swords together while, calm and unbothered, watches from behind. Both thee and a fierce woman stared wide-eyed, and the woman demanded to know what was happening. The man in the cape, stunned, blurted out that could summon more than one entity. A red-haired fighter braced for battle and called out urgently, telling everyone to hold off the enemy for him. A fiery serpent-shaped spell spiraled through the air, targeting. Someone off-panel muttered that only elite level 20 mages could unleash such power. A confident man smirked, declaring that should have been dead after the chaos. Flames erupted with violent force, swallowing, and 4 others in a blinding explosion. Monstrous figures plummeted from above, and a fearful, overwhelmed leader shouted that their enemies now outnumbered them. If you'd like to see your favorite titles retold, leave a comment, and I'll be sure to pick some of them up from time to time. Also, let me know which video format you like more, long videos or short ones. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you again soon.